Hi everyone, today I want to show you a card that we did at our last stamp camp. It is actually a card that was designed by Stampin' Up. As a Stampin' Up demonstrator, we get a magazine every quarter as well as every Tuesday some inspiration in our inbox. They send us a really nice email with ideas and a couple projects and usually a video or a business tip. And this was in the quarterly magazine, and I thought it was really lovely, and I made it for Stamp Camp. And I always cut a few extra cards when I do a Stamp Camp, and you know, if I have 12 people coming, I cut 14 and so on. And then when I get home, if I have leftovers, if no one made an error or I still have some left, I will make them up myself and just kind of put them in my little rack for sale. But I normally don't video those because I feel like, well, I've already done them, I've already used these cards in a class. But I thought, you know, as I put my last few pieces together here, I might as well video it, because even though I've seen this card and all my Stamp Camp customers have seen this card, perhaps you have not seen this card. And it's quite lovely. I really love it because of the watercolor, and the embossing on this stamp set is just beautiful. The detail turns out so nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put this card together. It's really simple, quite fast, and the watercoloring is loose and easy, and don't be intimidated by the watercolor on this one. It's really fast. You know, it's funny, all 12 people at Stamp Camp stayed within the lines. I was trying to tell them to be loose and let the watercolor go past the lines, and they all stayed within the lines. Every single one, 12 people. That was really funny. But you know what? It looked beautiful. So if you want to stay within the lines or not stay within the lines, either way, it works great. So here we go. I used fresh fig as the base, and then a piece of shimmery white cardstock. And the reason why I'm using shimmery white cardstock and why they suggest it is because it'll hold up to watercolor quite nicely, whereas Whisper White will not. And so you can use watercolor paper or shimmery white. Shimmery white is a little lighter weight, and it does have a little sparkle to it, so it looks really beautiful with watercolor. That sparkle still shows through on top of the watercolor because watercolor is pretty opaque. Anyway, it's just a lovely cardstock. So we're going to stamp the large image. Oops. Oh, you know what I want to show you too? When there's an image that has a big empty space in it, like this one does, Stampin' Up tends to punch it out so that you don't accidentally get too much ink in the center and then it transfers onto your project. So these little shapes can be used in interesting ways, and I thought really fun to use as a stamp, and I used it on this background here. Just kind of interesting. I just kind of randomly stamped it, just a very loose, different colors, stamped off different intensities of color all throughout the background of my card, and you can use that on a scrapbook page or something. It's just a really fun little shape, don't you think? Anyway, so hang on to that. It's fun. We're going to emboss with this one, and I'm going to make my next card a thank you. Here's the hello. I send a lot of thank you cards to customers, so I can always use some thank yous. Okay. Get that on there really good. Okay, so I'm going to use Versamark ink, which is a sticky kind of watermark ink. It doesn't show up very well. It's clear and sticky, so it's going to make that embossing powder stick. There we go. Now I'm going to shake on some silver embossing powder. If you've never used embossing powder, it's really fun and easy, and it gives such a wow as you see it melt and turn into the finished project. Kind of flick it a little bit. Now I've got a little bit that's sticking here. Sometimes I like to keep a paintbrush near my desk. Okay, now we're going to heat this up with the heat tool. It's kind of loud, so I'm going to mute it and speed up the video so you don't have to watch the, you know, the slowness. But I'm going to bring it up kind of close. I like to see it change from the powder to the shimmery embossed look. Look at that shine and the crispness of the lines. It's just a lovely embossed stamp. Some stamps just look really great embossed, and this is one of them. So I'm going to use an aqua painter filled with water, and the colors I'm using are Berry Burst, Old Olive, and Grapefruit Grove. So I've got these 3 colors here, and I'm going to kind of watercolor one color at a time, and I'm going to show you how it's just really loose and easy. Now in the old pads, which is what this one is, you can squeeze the pad, which gave you some ink in your lid, and then you can use that to paint with. The newer pads don't squeeze as well. You can kind of squeeze them, but they're just not as flexible, and which is good. They're stronger. They're meant to be stronger so that the lids don't, on these, sometimes the lids came off at Stamp Camp, and then people would hand me the 2 pieces and say, put this back together, please. And then we'd have inky fingers. So this doesn't happen as much, but I have a workaround for that. What I do is I make myself a little palette with these tiny little blocks. So you can just get some ink on there and work straight off the little block, or sometimes I just do that. I make myself a little palette on the inside, and then I have a Stampin' Scrub next to my desk, next to my work surface, and I just take the little block and clean it off. So then I'm done. So that's how I get some ink. That's how I get some ink in the lid. I'm going to start with the Old Olive. So I haven't used this in a couple days, probably dry. Okay, there we go. I've got it wet, not too wet, and I'm going to pick up some ink. Sometimes I like to put a little water off to the side. And I'm going to do the leaves, and I want them to be loose. I don't want them to be perfect, so I'm going to color outside of the lines. I'm kind of like throwing down some watercolor on and around the leaf, and I'm doing it quickly first so that I've got a light wash of it. Like that, just really fast, and then kind of get some of the water off of the brush and go in and get some ink. And it's still wet, so it's going to bleed, but you can add some detail, some darker highlights on the leaves just by touching that still wet leaf. See how it just kind of bleeds into the rest of the still wet area, but you do have a little highlight of dark. And that is the Old Olive layer. And then I just go like this to clean my brush. Next I'm going to work with, I might as well do the Grapefruit Grove since it's open. So, remember what I said before, you're going to go over it quickly with a light wash, and past the lines is great. Now again, if you don't want to go past the lines, you don't have to. But it's fun to try it. See if you can let it go and just be free with your watercolor. It's hard to do sometimes, I have to admit. So we've got a nice little light wash going past the lines. I'm going to do this one as well. Now if you want to wait and let that dry a moment, you can, but I think I can go ahead. It's not super wet. I think I can add some dark highlights without waiting. Let's see. So I'm wanting to get the center of the flower darker than the edges. Now I may go back and add some more depth of color once this dries, so I'm going to set the Grapefruit Grove to the side and go with the Berry Burst. So I'm just squeezing it. I'm getting some ink in my lid. You can see I watercolor a lot. All my lids look like this. I just love to watercolor. So now I am doing the same thing. I'm going to give a nice little wash. I'm going to try to be fast and loose. And then I'm going to go in and add some little touches of darker color. All right, I'm going to let it be. So while that's drying, I'm going to grab a scrap of shimmery white, as well as my fresh fig, and we're going to stamp that thank you. I like to make sure on a big solid stamp like this that I have good coverage, and I do. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. And punch it out. This is a fun new punch. It was actually introduced in the Occasions catalog that ended this past, what was it, May? And it's really a fun punch, and it's a nice size. You can get a lot of greetings on this. Sometimes punches are oddly shaped and you can't get some good greetings, but this one actually allows you to get some really great use, the sentiments that you can fit on here. And it's a nice size for a card, friends. It's not too small where you feel like you have to do a lot, and you can put some cute little layering pieces behind it. It's a great label punch. It's called Tailored Label. There we go. So those are my little pieces here. Now another element that I'm adding are some colored doilies. At Stamp Camp we used, these come in 4 colors, Old Olive, Coastal Cabana, what is this one, Flirty Flamingo, and the Grapefruit Grove, and we used the Grapefruit Grove at Stamp Camp, and I had 12, so we used them all. I have no more of the Grapefruit Grove, so on my sample I knew that was going to happen, so I used Old Olive, which is what we used in the leaves, so that'll bring it out, although all the colors, except for maybe the Coastal Cabana, but even if you chose to go with Flirty Flamingo and change up your flowers, but the Old Olive looks really good. And to stretch these a little further, I just cut them right in half. Oops, of course I run out just as I'm filming. Alright, I have another one. Okay, so the doilies just go at the top and bottom. And then I wanted this to stand out a little bit, so I used some dimensionals. I'm going to finish it off with a fresh fig bow. And there you go. That is, oop. It's really a pretty card. I think that the watercolor really is soft and beautiful. I think someone who sees that is going to think that that's a really interesting technique, that it goes past the image. But again, if you want to stay within the image, I understand. So you can do that as well. So this stamp set is called Accented Blooms, and I also made a card with it, which I thought was on my desk. Where'd it go? Here we go, using watercolor pencils, which are a fun coloring medium, and some new colors are coming soon. I'm going to give you a little hint. So we have a pack of current colors, and they've added some. I'm so excited. I have to tell you, I placed my order. Demonstrators got to pre-order them. Customers are going to get to order them in August. The current collection of colors is still available, but they've added more. Just wonderful. I'm happy about that. Anyway, so you can color them with your colored pencils. You can use the Stampin' Blends. It's really fun. Or you can even leave it black and white. You can do all kinds of things with these really pretty floral stamps. I really like them. So take a look at these. I'm going to have these on my blog, Beth's Paper Cuts, and I'm going to do something with the inside. So you can take a look at my blog for the insides if you care to. And take a look at the accented blooms and the, whoops, here's that one I did with the middle, and the tailored label punch. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you watch again and subscribe.